Okay, hey guys. What we're going to be talking about today in this video presentation is how genes are expressed. We know that your phenotypes are determined by your genotypes, and so what your DNA says about you within a particular gene, that is going to be your phenotype. And a phenotype is typically going to come from proteins that are produced as a result of the genes being expressed on DNA. So I'm going to go through this. I am going to try to make this as quick as I possibly can, leaving you to watch some of this on your own. I'm going to probably make 3 different videos because there are 3 distinct parts of this, and honestly, you probably don't want to sit through all of it at one time, and so you can come back and sometimes it's a little bit easier to take it in smaller chunks. So there are 2 main processes that are going to be involved in protein synthesis. The first process is transcription, and that's going to be our first video. This video right here is in, it will be uploaded to Google Classroom, and I suggest to watch this video when I'm finished with transcription. The reason that I have a TNT analogy here is that in the first 2.5 minutes, he does look at the overview of transcription and translation, the whole process, and it gives you a really good analogy of that. But I would say just wait until the end of transcription and watch this entire video because it will bring it all together. Okay, so the central dogma of molecular biology says that, this is basically the central idea of how we know that information is transmitted in organisms. Information is encoded in a DNA molecule. It is then transcribed into RNA. The word transcribe literally means to write. So it's going to transcribe the information from DNA into RNA, which is a completely different molecule than DNA. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then information is going to flow from RNA into proteins. These 2 molecules right here are nucleic acids, which is an entirely different molecule than a protein. That's why translation has to occur, because if you know anything about translation, you know that if you're going to translate a language, there are different rules for, say, the English language than there is for Russian or Spanish or whatever. And so there has to be a translator that will do that. And so RNA is going to be that translator that takes the message from a nucleic acid language and converts it into a protein language. The flow of genetic information can or does occur in prokaryotes as well. Most of what I'm going to be talking about is eukaryotic genetic information or flow of genetic information in eukaryotes. But it does happen in prokaryotes. It just simply happens all in the cytoplasm. Whereas transcription, what we're talking about right now, takes place only in the nucleus, and translation occurs in the cytoplasm at the ribosome. Okay, here are your main differences between DNA and RNA. The big difference is going to be the sugars and the shape or the structure. It's single-stranded versus double-stranded. RNA is going to have uracil instead of thymine, and RNA has a lot of different functions that it can play. I'm going to skip over that, and let's just get into it. RNA is the nucleic acid that is going to play several different roles, and here they are. There are 3 different types. You've got mRNA, tRNA, and rRNA. mRNA is messenger RNA, and that is going to be produced in this process of transcription. tRNA is transfer RNA, and it does exactly what it sounds like. It's going to transfer amino acids that are just kind of floating around in the cytoplasm. It's going to bring them, the appropriate amino acid, up to the ribosome during translation. And then rRNA is important, but we're not going to be using it very much. It's ribosomal RNA. It is literally what makes up the ribosome. All right. In transcription and in translation, you're going to see these same 3 steps. The first step is always initiation, followed by elongation, and then termination. So making mRNA is going to start with a protein encoding gene on a template strand of DNA. So let's just look at this. This is a really good picture for you to get an idea of what we're talking about here. This is a DNA molecule in blue. And what we're doing is, in replication, we copied the entire genome, the entire DNA molecule. Here, all we're focusing on is one gene that is going to give us one protein that is going to determine a particular phenotype. So this one gene out of ever how many thousand are on this DNA molecule is what we're focusing on. There's 3 parts. You've got a promoter, and you've got a sequence that is actually going to be coded for. That's what we're focusing on. And then you've got a terminator. So in initiation, RNA polymerase, it's very similar to DNA polymerase. Remember, DNA polymerase in replication added nucleotides at the growing end, at the 3' end of a growing new strand of DNA when it was copying DNA. RNA polymerase is going to pretty much do the same thing, except instead of picking up DNA nucleotides, it's going to pick up RNA nucleotides, bases. And so, but the first thing that it's got to do is it's got to find that promoter. And when it finds that promoter, there are several transcription factors that are proteins that bind to a particular section of the promoter called the Tata box. And the reason it's called the Tata box is because there's a bunch of thymines and adenines alternating in that particular area of the promoter. And so these transcription factors find the Tata box, bond to it, and then that is how RNA polymerase knows where to begin. And at that point, DNA unwinds with helicase, and it's ready to be transcribed. Then the second step occurs, which is elongation. RNA polymerase just starts adding nucleotides, A, U, C, and G, to the 3' end, and it's doing this complementary to a DNA template strand. Remember, in replication, both sides were replicated. Here, only one side is going to be coded for. And then that's going to continue to happen until RNA polymerase reaches the terminator region. And at that region, all the enzymes, all the transcription factors are released, and you have something called pre-mRNA. It's pre-mRNA because it's not mature. It is an immature molecule, and remember, all of this is happening in the nucleus. So whenever it leaves the nucleus and goes to the cytoplasm, it will be exposed to lots of dangerous enzymes that would degrade it. And so the mRNA has got to be prepared before it can go into the cytoplasm. And so we call that RNA processing. What I didn't show you a while ago on that nice little picture showing the regions of the gene, I did not show you that there were some coding segments and some non-coding segments. The non-coding segments are called introns, whereas the coding segments are called exons. So we want to be concerned with the exons because the exons will be expressed. Exons will be expressed. And introns, we consider them to be insignificant. That's the way that you can remember it. Exons are expressed. Introns are insignificant. So therefore, we're going to need to remove them. There's two things that happens in RNA processing. You've got modification and splicing. So here's our picture. You got your promoter, the coding sequence, and the terminator. And in transcription, you get pre-mRNA. Well, the first thing that's going to happen is a 5' cap is going to be added at the beginning, and a poly A tail, a bunch of adenines, will be added at the end. And the longer this tail is, the more protected this mRNA is. And then you can see your exons and your introns here. So what we want to do is we want to get these introns out so that we're left with a mature mRNA that can then go into the cytoplasm and be translated into a protein. So, like I said, at the 5' end, you've got a cap that's going to be added. And what this cap is going to be used for is a recognition signal for ribosomes to bind to the mRNA molecule once it gets into the cytoplasm. The 3' end has the poly A tail, and that is going to give stability to the mRNA so that it is not broken down by dangerous enzymes in the cytoplasm. There's another picture of it. And now the second part of processing is splicing. The introns are going to loop out as these special little particles called SNRPs. That's how it's pronounced. SNRPs are going to bind to the intron, and it's going to make the intron loop out, and that will form a spliceosome. The intron is then excised, which means it's removed, and then the exons are then spliced together using DNA ligase. Ligase is going to bond those exons together. Results in a mature mRNA, which will then be able to leave the nucleus and be translated in the cytoplasm. Here's how that looks. You got your intron that needs to come out. Oops. These little SNRPs are going to come over here and bond to it, and it causes it to loop out. And as it loops out, it's excised, it's cut, basically. And then the exons here are spliced together using ligase, and then the SNRPs go away, and this information right here is no longer needed. Now, what do you think happens to this? It gets broken down, and remember, it's made of nucleotides, so these nucleotides can be used again. Maybe they can be used during transcription, but they can be used again. And here is an animation that I would like for you guys to look at. Oops. Well, okay. Well, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. Okay. Well, then never mind. So hopefully you can look at that on your computer at home. I'm not going to take the time to do it and try to download all that stuff now. And you can see at the end of transcription, we get a growing RNA molecule here. And I want you to notice that wherever RNA polymerase is, right behind it, DNA is going to wind back up. It's going to close back up. So you're only transcribing one part of this. That is transcription, and that is where I'm going to stop this portion of the presentation.